You got to say the line. You have a line, Noah.
Boom, and we're live.
Hey, everybody. The
We're
fantasy football
back!
ranking. We're back. All three of us. We had to put on the schedule. We got a little surprise pod for you in the offseason. Myself, Noah, and Justin are here, also known as the best managers in the league. At me. I don't have Twitter. We're going to be going over some rules. We're going to be going over some potential rule changes, outlining how the draft will look. And yeah, so boys, how you been in the offseason?
Bored. Very bored.
I haven't completely tuned out of football this offseason. I actually listen to some pods every now and then.
What?
Good for you,
Are y'all
Noah.
going to be prepared for the draft?
You guys are
this
done for. It's over.
Noah is scheming right now to draft Cam Akers #1 overall. He doesn't know.
I don't know. I didn't hear the news.
I feel like
So,
it's the past
Cam
couple
Akers falls to
years,
me
Noah
in the
shows us
second
the
round. I
draft.
steal him.
Dude. Good. I'm glad you're bored, Justin. Time to make you on board. And guys, watch out. Noah wasn't paying attention last year, and he won't. So things can only go up.
You guys are going in and out.
I think it's just
yeah?
Luke, but I think we're okay.
Okay. The jokes don't need to actually land. You don't need to hear them for the punchlines. Okay, so let's talk about some rules. We're just going over the rules as is. We have some proposed rule changes, and as well as the email this pod is attached to. We're going to be asking if you have any suggestions. Hit us up, and we'll see if we can slot them in as things we voted on, depending on what the suggestions is. But Justin, you just want to run down the rules, and then we could pick apart what we want to pick apart.
Sure. I guess, do we want to start? So we'll start with kind of where our rules are at now. So keeper rules, 2 players kept. All players that are on your roster at the end of your season are eligible. For our drafted players rules, players drafted, they receive a 2-round penalty to the round cost. So if you draft them in the 8th round, the next year you can keep them as a 6th. Players that are picked up as free agents or on waivers, the next year you can keep them at their ADP. So, for example, Mike Davis could be a steal this year. His ADP is in the 6th round. So I could potentially keep him in the 6th round. I'm pretty pumped. Please stay there, Mike Davis.
Did you just say Pog?
Huh?
Did you just say Pog?
No.
I think you said pumped.
Oh, pumped. Okay, never mind. Sorry, continue. Sorry, go for it.
So players can only be kept 2 years consecutively by any one team. So that's if you say kept Christian McCaffrey for 2 years, you can no longer keep him for another year. Players traded have their limit renewed. So if the player gets traded, then they can be kept for 2 years after that. So if you had, again, with the same example, you had Christian McCaffrey, kept him for 2 years, and then traded him, that next person can then keep them for 2 years. Players move through trades, retain drafted status. So if you trade a player, depending on where they're drafted, they still stay there. I think we only have 1 IR slot. That's from last year. And then we also had a rule that you could only keep them. Is this correct? You can only keep someone on the IR slot for 4 weeks.
Yeah, players if you put them on IR, they had to stay on IR for 4 weeks minimum. If they were brought off IR before then, they were immediately cut from your team. That's how it was last year.
Okay, I didn't remember that.
We never had an instance where someone did it. So it never came up. Before 4 weeks. Noah, you want to go over draft order?
No, you got it.
Okay. Draft order is as follows. So we have our beautiful Constellation League. The winner of the Constellation League actually last year, I believe, was Justin Thompson, right?
Was it?
I believe so.
I think I need to have this up in front of me, but we'll get back to that. Anyway, if you win Constellation, you get to pick your draft spot first, then tracking back down through Constellation. So 8th would pick 2nd, so 4th. All the way to 12th, they would have the 6th selection, so they could pick 6th. Then it goes reverse order back up the chain. So Noah, who won the league, nice job, Noah. he's going to get stuck with a draft spot at the end of selection. This is again something we did to incentivize playing through consolation. It's also a fun draft kind of niche thing. And then how division selection is set up right now is our division winners stay put. So last year, Noah, Sam, and Jacob Hughes won their divisions respectively. Good job, everybody. So they will be split up and as of right now and separated. And then the other players we put back into a pool and randomly put into divisions. This is done so we can kind of mix it up. We had like 4 years running where Justin and I played each other in the first year or first game of the year, like every freaking year. It was like, okay, we start mixing this up.
Tradition now.
yeah, yeah. Now it's a tradition. We're not in the same division. It's kind of rough. Last year we kept it going though. But these are our rules as follows, or as it stands now, and we have some potential rule changes that we want to bring up, kind of the benefits, the pros and cons, and why we want to talk about them. So, you guys want to run, kind of shout out. We don't have to do these in order. Just shout out what you want to talk about first.
Well, I think the first one that it's kind of a small one, is that I think, had to do with the players being traded, having their limit renewed. Or something about that 2 years consecutive. I can't remember exactly
what
it
was. About like what we want the kind of key moves and key strategies for the league to be. Because for me personally, I like players being rewarded for making good draft picks, and I don't like players hogging like top options and like just treating them around so they never hit the draft again, which is kind of how we had it set up. So like if a first round pick got injured and dropped, they could be picked up and kept for a first round pick and no loss. You just had to burn a bench spot as it stands now. And also players that were getting kept could be traded to be further kept by other teams. If like your player was about to expire, you could just trade them, and the player receiving them could just continue keeping them, and they would never be drafted again. Which I didn't think lended itself to the best kind of fluidity to the league and strategy and flow season by season. So those are some of the things that I proposed we address, and the proposed rules for those were what? I don't remember. I just know we talked about it.
So there's a couple things. So I like what you brought up on how we changed our keeper rules 2 years ago because we had that kind of situation going where the top players kind of just shuffling across. And if you had a blue chip player, you were good. You could just trade it for another blue chip. You had your good keeper, but if you didn't, you're kind of screwed. And so the new keeper system was supposed to reset those top end players and reward, managers like you said who are making good later round picks. The problem is let's say, like for example, I drafted Antonio Gibson in the 11th round last year, and Antonio Gibson could theoretically over the next like 5 seasons be traded twice and never be drafted until he's like a first round talent, technically with the current system, which is not something I think I didn't think of it personally. Like I didn't consider that with our our old rules and how we adapted them. And so some of the changes we proposed, for example, is that drafted players would not have contracts renewed. So let's say you draft a player in the 11th and you keep him as a 9th and you trade him. The new manager can keep him for 1 more year. So the 2-year rule stays intact. But then after that, they must go back into the pool. They cannot be traded. If they get traded, then they still get back to the pool. Like, let's say, you got him in, trade him away in mid-season. He cannot be kept again. Which I think will ensure those value picks go back in the pool and be drafted where they're supposed to in a reasonable time. We also talked about players one of the changes we proposed is players can't be kept off waivers. This is what Noah brought up about, like, for example, Saquon tore his ACL last year, got dropped as he should have because Kessner couldn't keep him. He was drafted in the first, but once he hit waivers, anybody who scooped him up could then keep him as a first theoretically in the next season.
Yeah, again, and that's doubly bad because the guy that drafted him can't keep him and is burning a bench spot, but then anyone else that picks him up can keep him. So you're like being punished for drafting a good player who happens to get injured. So
absolutely,
that definitely need to be addressed.
Absolutely, and so one of the things we talked about is like if a player is dropped because it's season ending, they just can't be kept. Or another option is players can't be kept off waivers, or another option is players kept off waivers and not addressing this would be separate from like a first round talent or second round talent, but any player kept off players would be kept with an ADP +1. So when we release this email in this pod, it's going to be attached with an ADP list that will be as current as possible up to the email, and your keepers will be based off that ADP list. And what we do for the ADP list is I take the consensus across like 6 websites like Fantasy Football Calculator, NFL.com, ESPN, and we get a consensus ADP, and then we can base that off of our waiver keeps. So in the future, if we example took the waiver +1, let's say you kept Mike Davis, like Justin brought up earlier, who can be kept as a 6 at this point, at the time of this recording, you'd be able to keep him as a 5 this year, which would eliminate again first round talents being capped because you can't keep past the first round. But I think we would still need to address like a second or third round talent it's the same problem where you kind of get busted for drafting someone who maybe tears their ACL and is out, and then someone else picks them up.
Yeah,
So these are things.
What do you think, Justin? What's your preferred route?
So for me, if we do the 1 round penalty, I don't think anybody would really keep players off waivers because you're guaranteed not to get a value. So unless you're, I don't know, say a Pittsburgh fan and you just really want to keep Najee Harris, like you can, but you're not.
He's not going to be on waivers, Justin. You watch it.
You never know, man. You're guaranteed not to get a value. So at that point, it's like you're essentially just, you might as well just say players cannot be kept from waivers because like it's probably not going to be worth it. I know another solution that we talked about is players could be kept off waivers at their ADP, but we change, which this is quite drastic, it's a little bit more drastic, but we switch to a free agent acquisition budget type system, so that people would have access to, if they really want a person, they can go get them. Doesn't necessarily solve if you're the manager who has them and you got injured, but if we say keep our IR slot, perhaps that remedies that issue. But that's another solution, where if we like being able to keep players off waivers, perhaps FAB could be a good route to go. But we can kind of triggers a further discussion.
Yeah. I think separately too, you guys have talked about it both. Like, I think we need to address the top 2 rounds. I think the top 2 rounds primarily. Like you just can't keep anyone drafted in the top 2 rounds from last year. Maybe that's the way we go. And then we apply a new waiver rule in addition, which would kind of solve both those problems. But we'll have all of these options. We're going to be voting again when you receive CMO. You'll have our clear-cut options to vote, and you guys will have a voice. We want the league to make this decision. We're just trying to outline and give you all the details or as many details as possible. Noah, what would your preferred route be?
I think that players drafted should retain their drafted status regardless of if they were dropped or not. And I definitely think that the new rule to prevent players from being kept for more than 2 seasons is one that should pass, because like if you draft a James Robinson in the 15th round, and he just gets kept, for 8 years in a row as he goes up to the first round. Not that he's going to be a first round talent forever, but that kind of situation shouldn't happen because it can't be on the same team. So you kind of are obligated to trade him to try to get value, and then he just bounces around the league.
I agree. Yeah.
But to me, the problem with that though is that you could potentially benefit from someone drafting, somebody in the 15th round, but just dropped them. So
yeah,
there is that situation.
What are you saying?
So say someone drafts, like say Aaron Rodgers, for example, last season was drafted in the 11th round? 13th round. He's drafted in the 13th round. Say someone drops him, but then you go and pick him up. Well, then you get to keep in the 11th round. Like, I don't know, you could get a bunch of situations like that where
I would keep him in the 9th round.
It would keep him in the 9th round. No, it would be if he was drafted in the 13th, you would keep him in the 11th.
I thought you said it was drafted in the 11th.
So you could be benefiting from someone just happening to, draft him.
Another thing we brought up when we were closing out last year is
I guess
having
you're
a
right.
system where if a player never hits waivers, or the free agent pool. So as we know right now, as waivers run, when you drop a player, they become on waivers, and then after 2 days or a day, they hit the free agent pool. But if another manager scoops that player up before they become free agents, then they would. That's another thing we talked about, and it can be an option in the email that they would retain their drafted status because they never truly hit the free agent.
So what were you saying?
That'd be
That
hard to keep track of, though.
players that are dropped do not retain their drafted status, but you just straight up can't keep anyone in the first 2 rounds?
Yeah, no matter
Because
what.
there's too much value fluctuation between like the front of the round and the end of the round.
Yes.
That's a pretty good
I
hybrid.
think I'm good with that.
Yeah. So again, that's what we'll put that in the email so you guys can vote on it. I think that's what I would vote for. And then I also like waivers plus 80 or plus 180p. I think Justin is correct that it will limit players being kept off waivers, but I still think it gives the manager an option. No, as it should. You're absolutely right, but it also gives
Because you should be rewarded for
good draft picks.
drafting players.
Right. Absolutely. But it still give the manager the option too if they want to pay extra to have a certain guy.
Yeah, if it's like, I don't know who's going in like the 9th, 10th round that maybe is undervalued in your mind, and you just pay up a little bit to secure that position. Maybe it was your pick that's at the end of the round, and you're okay with just securing that player. Then that makes sense to me. Exactly.
But again, you guys will all be able to vote on it, which is awesome. Moving forward, let's just talk Fab while we're in the waiver player conversation. We talked about Fab a lot. For guys who don't know, that free agent acquisition budget, or FAAB. Generally, in a standard league with Fab, you'd get $100 to spend on a free agent pickup. When waivers run, teams would be able to submit bids on players, and tiebreakers would be your standard seeding for the week. So let's say going into the week, Noah has priority 1, I have priority 2. We both bid $5 for a player. Noah would win because he has priority, but if I bid 6, then I would win that player over Noah. We haven't had Fab in the past for a variety of reasons. Personally, I know I've been against Fab because I'm of the mind that I would always want the weakest teams to have access to the best free agents. But we have also seen that some of the weakest teams don't always submit waivers, which kind of tosses that argument out the window. And we also, like Justin brought up earlier, we want managers to be able to put their money where their mouth is. Like, let's say you go into week 1. Like for me, last year, Nyheim Hines, I thought would be, after the week 1 performance, would be like a breakout. Kessner got him off waivers, and I paid up for him. I paid Kareem Hunt in a 6th for him, which was a horrible decision. But in a Fab situation, I probably would have bid a considerable amount of my Fab, and then I would have been left staying in the bill. Or if he panned out, I would have been, high and dry. But giving the manager the option to make that call instead of just getting stuck in the waiver run is definitely a conversation. We also talked about waivers running every day. So instead of waivers running on Tuesday, then we have a free agent pool. No players can hit the free agent pool. Instead, the waivers will just reset for the next day. Which I think is a great idea. That gives people who are working, who don't have access to their phones right away if an injury comes in, the chance to go in. But I think that personally, I would separate those two. But Justin, what are your thoughts on this?
So Fab is definitely interesting. I much like you, I was against it at first, and I think I've kind of warmed to the idea a little bit. Essentially, I think one of the best parts about Fab is just you have access to every free agent, and you can, if you really want a guy, you can really pay up for him, and you can go get him, which I think adds a really interesting strategic aspect to fantasy football, because you have to decide and you have to make decisions. You don't have to make just decisions about who do I want to go after this week, but you have to decide how much you want to go after a certain player, and you can argue that you are in complete control. If you don't do well, you're much more in control of that because of your waiver pickups. And if you don't get a player, it's up to you. You didn't pay up for him, so there's no excuse. I also think one of the biggest benefits in my mind is with the reverse order waiver pickups. I don't know if you guys know this, but for the playoffs, it actually switches because that's not really possible once you get to the playoffs, and it switches to a rolling waiver order, which is of all three of the systems is like the worst because you get punished for making ads, which I think is just awful. And so I think that's one of the nice things about Fab is that it still works in the playoffs. You're not dealing with two different waiver systems. And again, it's just an added strategic aspect to the playoffs as well. Versus if really when you're making waiver pickups in the playoffs, it's all down to did you make a waiver ad in week 13? If you did, you're screwed. And if you had to make a waiver pickup in the playoffs, you're also screwed because you're not going to be able to get another guy essentially. So that's kind of like I think the two. And also, it also gives us the option. I think it's probably the best system if you want to be able to keep players off waivers because, again, you can pay it. Everybody has access to those players if they want to keep them.
Sure.
And, down the line, maybe we want to add in, trading Fab dollars, which that's also.
I'm all for it. Noah, what are your thoughts?
I haven't thought much about Fab. I do like the idea, especially like the idea of putting in another tradable asset, but it is a really big change, and I would say that like for us to swap to it, we would need like a 75% positive vote because it's good, but it's also very like it's a big change,
I
also
agree.
think it would be for the next year. It wouldn't be this year.
We could delay it a year too. So we can put in there in the vote that this Fab would take effect next season. But then that way too, you as managers would know it's coming if we do vote that way. But good. I like the thoughts. And then like you guys both brought up, tradable assets, huge. When we made draft picks, tradable assets, draft or trades skyrocketed in the league as compared to what they were because teams were able to find better common grounds. And I think that's better for the league. If
it's easier to balance trades.
Yeah, exactly. And managers are communicating. We saw managers, who normally didn't trade with each other because they found the middle ground.
And also on the trade note, so when you're able to trade Fab dollars, so when we opened up being able to trade draft picks, it kind of opened up the tanking route. The nice thing about Fab dollars is that it's kind of like an asset you can trade where the person you're trading with doesn't have to be tanking in order to like get a deal across.
Yeah, it's a non-player that helps you right now versus
exactly
helps you next year.
And Fab dollars would always reset at the end of the year, so you can't bank.
Oh yeah,
you can't let them roll over.
Which
is I think it's fantastic.
So it kind of discourages tanking, but like allows you to still get trades.
Agree.
So which is nice.
So that'll be definitely something we'll put up to vote. I think a year buffer is a good idea, just so everyone prepares. But cool. And then one of the last rule changes we were talking about is new, and this is more of a fun one, is how we divide our divisions. And Justin, did you want to go over? Santos proposed a phenomenal idea. We have a couple options though. So Justin, you want to go over Santos's idea, and then I'll bring up the other one.
Yeah. So I might screw this up. So correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of the idea is that you get placed in a division based on where you finish the previous year. So I think essentially how Santos had it set up is that one division would be the 1 seed from last year, the 6 seed, the 7 seed, and the 12 seed. And then Division B would be the 2 seed, the 5 seed, the 8 seed, and 11 seed. Division C, 3, 4, 9, 10. And you get the idea. Essentially, you're going to get, one like top tier team. You're going to get 2 mid-tier teams. And you're going to get 1 bottom dweller team in each division. Which means that, how you do at the end of the season, be it consolation bracket or playoff bracket, will directly affect who you will be, in a division with the next year. That's my understanding.
Yeah. And then our other idea was that and this would we were talking about either post or pre-draft. Either way, we'd have our division winners draft their co-division players. which would be
Oh, yeah.
super fun, but kind of crazy. I'd love to see the number 1 overall pick, Josh, go and be selected because he was the worst manager last year. You heard it here, folks. The worst manager, Josh Kobayashi. Noah, what do you think of these two options?
I don't hate the random seeding. I get it's annoying when you get paired with the same teams every time, but I like a little bit of randomness. I don't really like the team captain route where you pick your teams or pick your opponents. And I don't like the rigidness of just having it auto ranked at the end of the year. But I wouldn't be opposed to that either.
So I know for me the random, like what grinds my gears in the random one is last year, and I jokingly named the divisions every year: rookie, pro, and all Madden for Madden difficulties. And fittingly, before the league started last year, all 3 of us, the 3 people you're listening to, we're on the same freaking division with the new guy, Josh Kestner, who's pretty good at fantasy football. And we finished 4, 5, and 6 in the regular season. So 3 of our managers went in a very, very competitive division.
Well,
whereas
you could keep the division winners and then random the second place teams and then random everyone else.
Okay, so this is that's a great idea. So I think
that's
we're gonna have
that's a good idea.
We have these options. We could do a mixture of all 2, 3, but I think that mixing this rule up is definitely something we should think about. But yeah, I know when we were drawing lots last year, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like playing with you, Noah, in the first place was annoying, and then Justin got tossed in. I was like, "Are you kidding me right now?"
And just for context, those are the top 3 managers in our owner rankings.
Yeah, and we're not biased at all. Okay, man. Okay, League, you hear us? We're
That's
the best.
the data.
Data-driven. Facts don't lie. So we'll have. I think so. You said we random the second place and then random the bottom 2. That's a good option. We'll toss that in our options for league vote. But yeah, I think those are our primary rules we're going to want to change. Like I said, you're going to be getting this in an email. It'll be really written out pretty extensively on how all these work. And so, for example, we did do the Santos idea. We already know the divisions for next year. So next year it would be Noah, myself, Justin Thompson, and Josh Kobayashi. It would be Sam Santos, our new manager, and Mark. Spoilers, you should know the new manager by the time you're hearing this podcast. And Jacob, Justin, Ken, and Kessner. So pretty balanced, but I agree.
Wait, it would be us 3 based on rankings next year?
Based on rankings, it would be Thompson, you, me, and Josh Kobayashi. And Justin would be with Jacob, Ken, and Kessner.
Justin T. Okay, I see that now.
Yeah, so I would still have to deal with you jerk. But yeah, so I think that's all the rule. Oh, one other thing. Sorry, IR. We had built in our 4-week rule for the IR slot because we wanted IR to be truly a place that you put a player who is injured and not a player who happened to hurt his head and might play this week, but you're able to snatch another player off waivers and essentially treat the IR slot as a 7th bench slot. While we played the season out, we found out that the NFL league rules wouldn't let you put on those kinds of players. You had to put on an actual IR player. And so I think
NFL.
Yeah, good job NFL. You did it correctly. So I think that we can remove. It'll be up to vote, but we could remove the 4-week rule, and just have it so IR eligibility is per NFL fantasy rules because they had it, in my opinion, the correct way the whole time. But I think that's all the rule changes. Did you guys have anything else that I'm missing?
Don't believe so.
Some of these rule changes will be in effect this year, right?
Yeah, and so those will be highlighted. That's a good point. I think that the ones that we would push to next year would potentially be fab and potentially be division winners because that's something because we know seeding, and if we chose the Santos route, we would probably want to push that a year and randomize it one more time.
I think the division, if we choose any of the other division ideas, that would be for this year.
Yeah, other than that one, because we
Anything to do with the keeping waiver keepers would be next year.
Wait, do we know?
Yes, agreed.
Do we know
Yes.
divisions right now?
So if we, like I said,
No.
if we use the Santos's route, we know the divisions because we know the seeding. Because it's predetermined,
Right.
and that's the ones we read you. So, like I said, if we voted for that option, I would suggest that has a year buffer.
Yeah.
But the other options we could do this year because they're technically unknown
Right.
outcomes.
Yeah. I'm
Cool.
good with that.
So yeah, I'll outline what would be applied this year, what would be applied next year. Justin's correct. So if we did change the waivers, that does not mean that we would be applying that to the players you are trying to keep right now. That would be applied to the waivers we are trying to keep next year, as well as keeper rules. Like keeper, the 2-year keeper contract that would be applied starting this year, or starting next year. Sorry. And so yeah, I think that's it. Did you guys want to talk notable keepers? You just want to wrap it up?
Keepers, baby.
Keepers.
Got to bring it up. It's been a while.
Posted it.
How do I get back in the league, dude?
You gotta. All right, everyone. This is info. You go to NFL.com. You click fantasy football on NFL.com. You log into your account.
Oh,
And it should
wait, I
be
can see
right
it now.
there.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
know why
it
I
should be
couldn't
right
see it
there.
before.
All good. I've got also the draft board here for us. Yeah, you guys are here. Perfect. So taking a look at this list, Cam Akers in the 5th round. I'm sorry, I can't.
Rip.
Dude, that
Rip. I'm so
sucks.
sorry.
Was
It's
it
the
just?
worst.
It was in practice, I assume.
Yeah, and he's
He was
down.
working out, I think.
How do you do that,
Yep.
man?
I don't know, man.
I don't know. That was a hot damn. I had him pretty high up. So I know we went over like in the awards last year some keepers, but you guys want to give the board a quick read and shout out something that you seem as crazy. Now keep in mind, and we're for the listener, we're looking at the draft board ahead of us, but some of these players have moved from where they've been drafted. They might have new things applied, but yeah, Diggs in this, what was it, the 6th,
5th.
you animal.
Ridley in the 6th.
Really, in the 6 is
Good
nasty.
gosh.
Good Lord, especially after the Julio trade.
Yeah.
So I think we got Noah's
34.
keepers right there.
Yeah.
There they are.
No decision.
So just a shout out, guys. If you want to draft a running back, draft ahead of Noah. Because
I'm
they will
gonna
be
have to
good.
like whatever running backs fall to me, I just have to take them.
Yeah, those are pretty ridiculous. Gibson in the 13th obviously is stupid.
Is he still on your team?
Or in the 12th, sorry. I traded him to Kessner
Did
for
he hang on
Noah
to him?
Fant. Oh yeah, he did. Oh yeah, that was part of the incentive.
Nice.
That's almost guaranteed a lock for Kessner in the 10th. Right now he's ADP in the 2nd round. It's an 8-round plus.
Oh yeah, I mean, you got to.
Hawk is actually like Josh could keep Hawkinson. I think he's ADPing like the 6-7, so it'd be a little bit of a plus there at 9. You all heard it here first. Keeping Kyler Murray in the 7th round, which is a 2-round bump. Right now he's being drafted in the 4-5 area.
Lamar in the
Pretty
7th
good.
is pretty good.
Yeah, Josh Kessner also has Lamar Jackson in the 7th round. Pretty good.
Who of your drafted players are still on your roster, Luke?
Let's see. Not Clyde, not Julio, not Thielen, not Lockett, not Hunt, not Singletary, not Jones, not Ertz, not Hurst, not Brian
The answer is
Edwards.
0.
0 players. So you're not keeping anyone.
Not anyone that I drafted. No, I traded for Murray with the 2 rounds.
Oh yeah, where was he taken?
In the 9th, so I'll get him in the 7th.
Who took him?
He was kept.
Jacob.
He was
earlier.
kept.
Yeah,
Jacob.
he was kept.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and I also have a couple. So I have Noah Fant available to me. He would be an 11th round pick if I kept him. I have Deontay Johnson available to me. He would be a 5th round pick if I kept him. So I have options. Thinking about it, I have.
I'm curious. Who of your team was still on your roster, Justin?
I can't believe 0.
Hopkins,
can't believe it.
TMC, Keenan Allen, and that's it.
I had 5, and I probably would have had more if I hadn't traded away Crowder. I think that's pretty good. Still having 5
Means you drafted
players.
well.
Somehow.
Yeah, my draft was apparently garbage.
I'm sure I had dropped Bell at the end. I know I hung on to him for a while.
I mean that Stephen Diggs, Calvin Ridley duo there is just. Ugh.
That's so frustrating, dude. In draft, to give you a little behind the curtain. In draft, in the 5th, no, sorry, in the 4th, when I took Lockett, I almost took Calvin Ridley, and then decided I have Julio Jones already. This is a bad idea. Then we get to the end of the 4th, going into the 5th, and on my rankings, I have Darren Waller ahead of Zach Ertz. Literally in my ranking, like my personal rankings, I've ranked Darren Waller ahead of Zach Ertz. And crunch time, I'm on the clock. I panic and just take Zach Ertz. And as soon as I did, I was like, "What the crap?" And then you took Diggs. It was like, oh, the worst
Oh, were you
2
targeting
rounds.
Diggs?
Yeah. So then I was like, I was hoping. Yeah, it was just bad. It's terrible. It was awful. Yeah, I was hoping to pick up Diggs on the back end because I had a later or an early 6th round. It's just stupid, just dumb. Guys, learn your lessons. Like, don't draft Le'Veon Bell in the 4th round.
Yikes.
Yeah, don't do that.
It's okay, no. All your other picks
which
turned out.
like mid-round RBs to take. I feel like they always bust for me every single year.
Yeah, any
I
RB
somehow
between
make it
4 and
work.
7 is a dice roll.
Yeah.
Like Lindsey, Kessner picked up Lindsey in the 7th. Did he even do anything this year? Or last year? I don't think he did.
Not really. I think he had like 1 game where he put up 15 points.
Yeah.
Let's look
And
through
then-
all the running backs in 4 through 7. We have Lev Bell, nothing. David Johnson, he was okay.
That was a keep too.
Cam Akers
Cam
was
Akers,
good
Near
later.
the end of the year. Yeah, like last
Dobbins
season.
was
a good
good
draft and hold.
later. Montgomery was great.
Mostert was good because
later.
you could just play him when he was healthy.
Yeah, if he knew he was active, you were good for 20. But yeah, that was like 5 times.
And then Wasteland, Philip Lindsay, Carry On, LaShawn McCoy,
Oh,
James
God.
White,
Yikes. Yeah,
Singletary,
the 7th
Mack.
round is rough.
Oh, yo, Justin, why? Okay, again,
It's like you
bring
might
me
as
in
well
on
even
the.
draft running backs in that area.
Why is Emmanuel Sanders going in the 8th right here, man?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I know hindsight's 2020,
Hindsight's
but,
2020.
but
My
I could have
thought
told you this at
process-
this pick.
Bro,
My
imagine
thought
if
process
he
was
had actually
that-
done something when what's his name went down.
Oh, Thomas? Yeah. Oh, that
Yeah.
would have been like, yeah, fire. That would have been hot.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, it's rough. But my thought process was that there wasn't a wide receiver to in New Orleans. Little did I know that it's just Kamara. That's what it is.
The whole
But
He's-
I thought
he's the
Emmanuel
wide
Sanders is
receiver
the
one,
best
okay?
wide receiver two they've had in a long time. So maybe he actually creates a wide receiver two spot. Didn't happen. Didn't work.
the arm for Breeze was not there.
No. And yeah, Kamara is the number 1 wide receiver, dude. Thomas is the 2.
Yep.
100%. I think a couple others. So DK Metcalf can be kept for a second time or for a second year by Ken as a
Yikes.
7th. That's fantastic. I think he's in the
Jeez.
2nd or 3rd right now. So that's huge value.
Disgustingly good.
And also for Ken, Montgomery was picked in the 6th. He held him all year. That's a 4th next year. I think that's. I know we just talked about not drafting a running back between the 4th and 7th round, but I would like David Montgomery in the 4th round.
Yeah,
Please.
I would too.
You guys know where David Montgomery ended last year?
In the rankings,
Wasn't it
or what do you mean?
RB6? Was it? No.
He
I don't
was
recall.
RB4.
Okay, I was too
Wow.
off.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Didn't feel like it.
Ridiculous.
He had so many
But-
quiet,
No.
like 20-point games.
Yeah, where he's just like being overshadowed by someone destroying, but meanwhile he's still putting up good numbers. Yeah. So I think that's a good keep. We should no, this is all chatty now, but we should do a segment of like at the end of the year how many players are still on your roster. and like someone wins an award for holding onto their whole squad.
And for trading it all away or dropping it all.
I don't need any of these players. What are you talking about? Don't need 0 of them. None of them. Get them out.
Santos has had a good portion of his players still on his roster, I think.
Coop
Yeah,
Galladay.
he had a really good draft. I remember
He had a
thinking
great
he had
draft.
the best draft.
Didn't he win best draft?
Yeah,
I believe he
I
did.
think so. Yeah.
He always
Yeah,
puts together a
yeah, maybe
solid
he did.
draft.
Such a solid draft. All right, I think that's good, guys. Let's wrap this up. You're gonna be hearing from us again around draft time. Always fun, gentlemen. Looking forward to hearing from you guys, and we'll talk to you later. Peace.